In the past, scholars really focused on individual traits, that is, aspects of my personality that affected how I engage in conflict. So, for example, if I'm a dominant person, do I engage in more competitive strategies? They also assumed that you could teach people strategies that were very similar to one another, and that if I used the strategy, I would be just as successful as if a man used that strategy or a person of color used that strategy. Now we've begun to recognize what we call a critical approach to conflict, and that is an understanding of how social and cultural factors impact conflict behavior. We now recognize that a person's sex, their socioeconomic class, their race, their gender orientation, their sexual orientation, all those sort of social factors really affect how they feel comfortable engaging in conflict and how other people respond to them when they engage in conflict. I think as a white woman who is, I want to say middle age, but let's say past middle age, I understand when I engage in conflict where I can be powerful and where my status is not valuable. As a young woman, I understood that I had certain kinds of power that I don't have now, and vice versa. And I found that recognizing my own social place or position helps me understand how to manage conflict more effectively. This is particularly true for people who don't have a lot of power, who don't have a lot of status, and who are more on the fringes of the social economics ladder. When we have little power, we have little recognition, we can't use the same strategies as people who have power. I'm going to give an example of one of my doctoral students and me, and her name is Bailey Oliver, and she created this course. When I was the director of her dissertation, I had power that and I had resources that she relied on. I got to say, you have to revise this. Or I got to say, no, you can't pass. Or now you have to use this method. And so because I had that kind of power and I had a resource that was very valuable to her, she wanted to finish her dissertation and graduate. She may have talked to me in a way that was more maybe submissive or more avoidant or accommodating. Well, then the tables turned. She graduated, did beautifully, and I wanted her to create this class. Now, she had a resource that I wanted, and she had power. I couldn't tell her to do it. She had the power to say yes or no, but I didn't have the power to make her do it. So when I talked to her, I would talk differently, probably being a bit more, what's the word I want to use? Softer. I was maybe flattered her a little more. I might have, been more polite, less demanding, and more pleading, in fact, because in that position, I needed to, because she had resources I wanted. So we need to understand that this is true not just about being a professor or a student. It's true about when anyone has status or power that someone else doesn't have. And that when you're someone who's on several sort of the fringes, let's say that I were a Black young male who was gay, that all those factors are going to influence how people understand that person's conflict strategies and how they respond to them. And if we don't take a critical perspective, I think we're really not helping people address real life issues. And in all the work we do, I think that's the most important thing.